When my daughter-in-law Patricia systematically banished me to the converted garden shed behind the main house, treating me like an unwelcome burden who should be grateful for any shelter at all, while she redecorated her master bedroom and planned extensive renovations using what she assumed was my son's inheritance money, she had no idea she was actually mistreating Margaret Wellington, the sole legal owner of the $2.8 million Hillcrest Estate property, holder of irrevocable trust documents that gave me complete authority over all family assets, and someone who could. Before I reveal how I systematically documented every act of elder abuse, every financial manipulation, and every legal violation that would not only result in their immediate eviction, but also trigger comprehensive investigation into their systematic exploitation of what they believed was a powerless elderly woman, let me paint you the picture of what Patricia saw versus the reality she never suspected. A miscalculation so catastrophic that it would transform her comfortable life of luxury and control into absolute destitution, while to Patricia Wellington, my daughter-in-law who had married into what she assumed was wealth and property ownership, I was just Margaret, the confused 73-year-old widow who had become increasingly frail and dependent following my husband's death 6 months earlier, who seemed overwhelmed by the complex legal and financial responsibilities of managing the family estate, who appeared grateful for her generous assistance in handling household decisions and family finances, and who would obviously benefit from simplified living arrangements that would allow Patricia and Marcus to properly manage the valuable property. What Patricia observed during our increasingly tense interactions was an elderly woman who asked repetitive questions about legal documents, which she interpreted as memory problems rather than recognizing my systematic verification of her claims about estate management. She documented my apparent confusion about financial statements, mistaking my careful analysis of unauthorized transactions for cognitive decline, rather than understanding that I was building comprehensive evidence of systematic financial abuse and property theft. Patricia's assessment of my apparent helplessness was based on her observation of my physical limitations following my recent hip replacement surgery, my reliance on mobility aids and assistance with daily activities, and my apparent emotional dependency on family support during what seemed like an overwhelming period of grief and physical recovery. Her systematic interpretation of my careful questions about household expenses and property management, as evidence of mental confusion rather than legitimate oversight, created the false confidence that would prove to be her complete undoing. The cultural assumptions that Patricia brought to her treatment of me were deeply rooted in ageist stereotypes about elderly women's capabilities, combined with her personal belief that marriage to my son had entitled her to family assets and property ownership. Her systematic approach to isolating me from family financial decisions while positioning herself as the natural successor to household authority demonstrated the calculating nature of someone who had carefully studied apparent elderly vulnerability and developed systematic plans for exploitatio. Patricia's systematic documentation of my supposed declining condition included detailed records of my increasing confusion about legal matters, my obvious inability to manage complex financial decisions, and my grateful acceptance of her assistance with household management and family coordination. What she failed to understand was that my reserved demeanor and careful questioning represented decades of experience in business management and legal oversight that far exceeded her own capabilities and knowledge. The professional authority that Patricia projected during our discussions about estate management was based on her background in marketing, and her confidence that elderly family members required guidance and protection from complex financial decisions. Her systematic use of legal terminology and urgent deadlines created an atmosphere of crisis that she assumed would prevent independent verification of her claims about property ownership and family financial obligations. Patricia's strategic presentation of my apparent legal incapacity to Marcus emphasized the progressive nature of my condition, the increasing risks associated with independent decision-making, and the urgent need for family intervention to prevent dangerous errors in estate management. Her systematic coordination of family concerns about my welfare while positioning herself as the obvious solution for comprehensive household management demonstrated sophisticated manipulation of family dynamics and emotional exploitation. The moment when Patricia's systematic assessment of my apparent vulnerability reached its final phase was when she announced that the garden shed would be temporarily converted into suitable living quarters for me complete with basic heating and a small bathroom, while she and Marcus moved into the master bedroom and began comprehensive renovations that would properly maintain the family property for future generations, never suspecting that her systematic elder abuse was being documented by someone whose legal authority over the entire property would soon result in their immediate eviction and her own exposure as a criminal who had systematically exploited it. The systematic degradation of my living conditions had begun subtly during the weeks following my husband Robert's funeral, when Patricia had suggested that I might be more comfortable in the smaller guest bedroom rather than the master suite that held so many painful memories of my deceased husband. Her presentation of this arrangement as temporary compassion, rather than the first step in a calculated plan to establish territorial control over the family residence, demonstrated her sophisticated understanding of psychological manipulation and gradual boundary erosion. Patricia's coordination with Marcus in implementing systematic restrictions on my access to common areas of the house included strategic scheduling of "family meetings" in the living room during times when I typically spent quiet hours reading or watching television, systematic rearrangement of furniture to create physical barriers that made navigation difficult for someone with mobility limitations, and gradual appropriation of personal spaces that had been mine for the 35 years that Robert and I had lived in the Hillcrest. The financial manipulation that accompanied Patricia's physical isolation of me from family life included systematic assumption of responsibility for household expenses and property management, strategic presentation of utility bills and maintenance costs as overwhelming burdens that required immediate family intervention, and gradual transfer of authority over financial decisions that she presented as temporary assistance during my period of grief and recovery but which represented comprehensive theft of legal and financial control over assets that legally. Patricia's systematic documentation of my alleged cognitive decline included detailed records of conversations where she claimed I had forgotten previous discussions about estate planning, fabricated incidents of confusion about household management and financial responsibilities, and comprehensive presentation of my legitimate questions about unauthorized expenditures as evidence of mental incapacity requiring family protection and professional intervention. The cultural assumptions that reinforced Patricia's confidence in her systematic exploitation of my apparent vulnerability included ageist stereotypes about elderly women's diminished capacity for independent decision-making, gender-based prejudices about property ownership and financial authority, and class-based assumptions about family hierarchy and inheritance rights that had convinced her that marriage to my son had automatically transferred legal authority over family assets to the next generation. And 6 to developer the grafted. Patricia's professional background in marketing and advertising had provided her with sophisticated understanding of psychological manipulation techniques, strategic presentation of information to achieve desired outcomes, and systematic exploitation of emotional vulnerabilities that she applied to her comprehensive plan for gaining control over family assets and property ownership. Her experience in consumer psychology and persuasion techniques had taught her exactly how to identify and exploit apparent weaknesses while building systematic dependence on her assistance and authority. The systematic isolation that Patricia implemented included strategic limitation of my contact with longtime friends and professional associates, gradual assumption of responsibility for scheduling medical appointments and social activities, and comprehensive control over household communication that prevented independent verification of her claims about family financial status and property ownership. Her systematic interception of mail and telephone calls created information barriers that reinforced my apparent dependence on family assistance while preventing external oversight of her systematic exploitation. Patricia's coordination with Marcus in implementing systematic elder abuse included strategic presentation of my legitimate concerns about unauthorized expenditures as evidence of confusion and paranoia, systematic minimization of my physical discomfort with inadequate living conditions as temporary adjustments during property improvements, and comprehensive rationalization of financial exploitation as necessary family protection of vulnerable assets during my period of grief and recovery. The legal terminology that Patricia used during our discussions about estate planning and property management was deliberately designed to create confusion and intimidation while establishing her authority over complex financial decisions. Her systematic presentation of legitimate legal documents as too complicated for my understanding, while offering simplified explanations that concealed her unauthorized appropriation of decision-making authority, demonstrated sophisticated manipulation of legal processes and elderly vulnerability. Patricia's strategic timing of her escalation to physical displacement coincided with what she presented as urgent property maintenance requirements that supposedly necessitated temporary relocation, while extensive renovations were conducted to, quote, preserve the family estate for future generations. Her systematic presentation of the garden shed conversion as temporary accommodation rather than permanent banishment demonstrated her understanding of how to implement systematic elder abuse while maintaining plausible explanations for her actions. The psychological manipulation that Patricia employed included systematic presentation of her authority over household decisions as temporary assistance during my grief recovery, strategic emphasis on her dedication to family welfare and property preservation, and comprehensive exploitation of my emotional vulnerability following Robert's death to prevent independent analysis of her systematic appropriation of legal and financial authority over assets that legally belonged to me. Patricia's systematic approach to avoiding external oversight included strategic limitation of my access to legal and financial professionals who might question her authority over family assets, comprehensive control over household information and communication systems, and systematic isolation from social networks that might provide independent verification of proper estate management and property ownership rights. The financial exploitation that Patricia systematically implemented included unauthorized use of family credit accounts for personal expenses and luxury purchases, systematic appropriation of household funds for renovations and improvements that she presented as necessary property maintenance, and comprehensive redirection of family income and assets to accounts and investments that she controlled while presenting these transfers as temporary financial management during my period of incapacity. Patricia's documentation of my supposed mental decline included systematic records of fabricated incidents of confusion and forgetfulness, comprehensive presentation of my legitimate questions about financial management as evidence of cognitive impairment, and strategic coordination with Marcus to create family consensus about my apparent need for protective supervision, and systematic limitation of independent decision-making authority. The specific techniques that Patricia used to establish psychological control included systematic presentation of complex financial information in ways designed to create confusion and dependence, strategic use of time pressure and artificial deadlines to prevent careful analysis of her claims about property management requirements, and comprehensive exploitation of my emotional vulnerability and grief to prevent independent verification of her systematic appropriation of legal and financial authority. Patricia's strategic presentation of the garden shed conversion as temporary accommodation included detailed plans for heating and bathroom facilities that would make the space comfortable for short-term residents, systematic emphasis on the temporary nature of the arrangement during major household renovations, and comprehensive rationalization of my displacement as necessary family protection during what she presented as essential property maintenance and improvement projects. The systematic nature of Patricia's elder abuse included careful documentation of her actions that could be presented as legitimate family assistance and property management, strategic coordination with Marcus to create family consensus about the necessity of protective supervision, and comprehensive planning for long-term control over family assets and property that she assumed would be permanently transferred to the next generation through systematic exploitation of my apparent legal incapacity. Patricia's confidence in her systematic exploitation was based on her assessment of my apparent isolation from professional networks and legal support systems, her assumption that elderly women lacked the knowledge and resources necessary to challenge systematic financial manipulation, and her belief that family relationships provided adequate cover for comprehensive appropriation of legal and financial authority over valuable assets and property ownership rights. The cultural stereotypes that reinforced Patricia's confidence in her systematic abuse included assumptions about elderly women's diminished capacity for independent legal and financial decision-making, prejudices about family hierarchy and inheritance rights that justified her appropriation of household authority, and ageist beliefs about the appropriate role of elderly family members in property management and financial planning decisions. Patricia's systematic documentation of my alleged incapacity included comprehensive records that could be presented to medical professionals and legal authorities as evidence of cognitive decline requiring family protection, strategic coordination of family concerns about my welfare and decision-making capacity, and detailed planning for potential legal challenges to her authority over family assets and property management that she assumed would be easily defeated through systematic evidence of my mental and physical limitations. The moment when Patricia's systematic exploitation reached its culmination was when she announced that the garden shed had been beautifully converted into independent living quarters that would provide me with privacy and comfort, while allowing her and Marcus to properly maintain the family estate through comprehensive renovations and improvements that would preserve our legacy for future generations. Never suspecting that her systematic elder abuse was being documented by someone whose legal ownership of every asset she was systematically stealing would soon result in the complete destruction of her comfortable life. To Patricia Wellington, my daughter-in-law who had married into what she assumed was wealth and property ownership, the woman she observed during her systematic takeover of household authority was nothing more than a convenient elderly widow whose apparent physical frailty, obvious confusion about complex legal matters, and desperate gratitude for family assistance made her the perfect target for comprehensive financial exploitation and property theft that would finally secure Patricia's position as the true head of the Wellington family, while eliminating any obstacles to her complete. Patricia's systematic assessment of my vulnerabilities had begun during the weeks immediately following Robert's funeral, when she had carefully observed my apparent grief-induced confusion and physical limitations, while positioning herself as the devoted daughter-in-law who would ensure that family assets were properly protected during my period of mourning and recovery. Her trained eye, sharpened by years of marketing research and consumer psychology, had immediately catalogued what she interpreted as clear indicators of cognitive decline and emotional dependency that would make systematic financial manipulation not just possible, but almost criminally easy to execute against someone who appeared increasingly unable to manage complex estate planning, legal decisions, or property management without extensive family guidance and professional oversight. The daily observations that Patricia meticulously recorded in her personal journal revealed her growing confidence in her assessment of my apparent limitations and her systematic plan for exploiting what she perceived as obvious vulnerability. She documented my increasing confusion when reviewing financial statements, interpreting my careful questions about unauthorized expenditures as evidence of memory problems, rather than recognizing the systematic analysis I was conducting of her financial manipulation and property theft. She noted my obvious dependency on written instructions for managing household affairs, mistaking my methodical documentation habits for cognitive compensation, rather than understanding that I was creating comprehensive evidence of our interactions for future legal action. Patricia's professional background in marketing and advertising had provided her with extensive experience in consumer psychology, systematic manipulation of decision-making processes, and the identification of psychological vulnerabilities that could be exploited for financial gain. Her knowledge of persuasion techniques, emotional manipulation strategies, and systematic exploitation of consumer weaknesses had convinced her that elderly individuals represented attractive opportunities for comprehensive financial exploitation, especially those who appeared isolated from professional oversight and overwhelmed by complex legal and financial responsibilities. The cultural assumptions that Patricia brought to her evaluation of my apparent limitations were deeply rooted in ageist stereotypes about elderly women's diminished capabilities, combined with her personal experience observing what she assumed were genuine cases of cognitive decline and family dependency among her friends' elderly relatives. These assumptions had created systematic blind spots in her ability to recognize that her target possessed superior legal knowledge, extensive business experience, and professional relationships that far exceeded her own marketing background and financial manipulation capabilities. Patricia's systematic surveillance of my daily routines had been conducted with the methodical precision of someone whose professional training had taught her the importance of detailed observation and behavioral analysis. But her cultural biases and personal arrogance had prevented her from recognizing that the confused elderly woman she was observing was actually conducting counter-surveillance and evidence-gathering using business management techniques that she had developed during decades of successful property investment and legal. The physical appearance that I presented during Patricia's assessment period had been carefully calculated to reinforce her preconceived assumptions about elderly vulnerability and medical dependency. My slower movements, which she attributed to age-related decline, were actually the result of ongoing recovery from my hip replacement surgery and deliberate caution to prevent further injury. My reliance on mobility aids and assistance with certain physical tasks, which she interpreted as overall incapacity, was standard medical practice for proper healing that I had used throughout my recovery to prevent complications and ensure complete restoration of my physical capabilities. Patricia's documentation of my apparent social isolation included detailed observations about my limited participation in community activities, my reduced interaction with longtime friends and professional associates, and my apparent withdrawal from the legal and business networks that had been central to my career before Robert's death. What she failed to understand was that my decreased social activity was a deliberate choice to maintain privacy during my grief recovery, while carefully observing her systematic appropriation of household authority and financial control. The financial vulnerability that Patricia assumed she had identified was based on her observation of my apparent confusion about investment portfolios, insurance procedures, and estate planning documents that seemed to overwhelm my cognitive capabilities and create obvious dependency on family assistance for complex financial decision-making. Her systematic misinterpretation of my careful questioning about financial procedures as evidence of confusion rather than professional analysis would prove to be one of her most catastrophic miscalculations in targeting someone whose expertise in property management and legal oversight exceeded her own understanding of financial procedures. Patricia's assessment of my technological limitations was based on her observation of my apparent struggle with digital banking systems, online investment platforms, and electronic communication technologies that seemed beyond my cognitive capabilities and technical understanding. She interpreted my preference for paper documents and telephone communication as evidence of generational technology gaps, rather than recognizing that my systematic approach to evidence preservation and secure communication was based on decades of business experience and legal protocols that required careful documentation and encrypted correspondence. The emotional manipulation techniques that Patricia employed during our interactions were designed to exploit what she perceived as my increasing dependency on family support and my obvious gratitude for her professional guidance during a period of grief recovery and apparent cognitive confusion. Her systematic use of legal terminology, complex financial explanations, and authoritative recommendations created psychological pressure that she assumed would prevent careful analysis, while building my trust in her expertise and dedication to family welfare and estate protection. Patricia's strategic timing of her increased involvement in household management coincided with what she presented to Marcus as my, quote, accelerating cognitive decline that required immediate family intervention to prevent dangerous financial errors, missed legal deadlines, and poor estate planning decisions that could result in significant asset losses or complex legal complications requiring expensive professional intervention and prolonged court proceedings that would drain family resources and create unnecessary stress during an already difficult period. The systematic approach that Patricia used to build my apparent dependency on her financial expertise included gradually increasing her involvement in document review, legal filing preparation, and family communication about my estate status while documenting my grateful acceptance of her professional guidance, and my obvious relief at having expert assistance during what appeared to be an increasingly overwhelming period of grief and legal complexity that exceeded my apparent cognitive capabilities. Patricia's documentation of my apparent memory problems included detailed records of my inability to remember previous financial discussions, my confusion about legal document contents and signing procedures, and my increasing reliance on her written summaries and financial explanations that demonstrated progressive cognitive decline requiring comprehensive family oversight and professional management to prevent costly errors and protect family assets during my apparent final years. The professional authority that Patricia projected during our financial discussions was based on her marketing background and business experience, which provided credibility for her observations about my declining capabilities, while positioning herself as the obvious solution for increasing financial supervision and family coordination of my estate planning needs. Her systematic use of business terminology, legal procedures, and financial deadlines created an atmosphere of urgency and complexity that she assumed would prevent independent verification or outside professional consultation. Patricia's strategic presentation of my apparent financial vulnerabilities to Marcus emphasized the progressive nature of my condition, the increasing risks associated with independent financial decision-making, and the urgent need for family intervention to prevent dangerous estate planning errors or property management mistakes that could result in significant financial losses, tax penalties, or legal complications, requiring immediate professional intervention and comprehensive family oversight of my remaining legal capacity. The specific examples that Patricia provided to Marcus of my apparent financial confusion included detailed descriptions of my inability to understand investment concepts, my forgetfulness about previous financial decisions, and my apparent anxiety about legal procedures that suggested increasing mental instability and financial incapacity, requiring comprehensive family protection and professional management to ensure appropriate estate planning and asset protection during my apparent decline. Patricia's professional experience with elderly clients in her marketing career had provided her with detailed knowledge of genuine cognitive decline patterns, family financial dynamics, and legal capacity issues that enabled her to create convincing simulations of financial confusion while maintaining plausible explanations for any inconsistencies in my behavior or apparent legal understanding that might suggest deliberate analysis or strategic planning, rather than genuine cognitive decline and financial incapacity. The family meetings that Patricia initiated about my increasing financial needs were strategically designed to build consensus about the necessity of comprehensive financial supervision, while positioning herself as the obvious choice for increased involvement in my estate planning due to her professional business credentials and her demonstrated commitment to family welfare and asset protection. Her systematic presentation of evidence about my declining financial capacity created family pressure for immediate intervention and increased professional oversight. Patricia's coordination of my apparent financial incapacity with her systematic preparation for estate administration demonstrated sophisticated criminal planning that combined her professional knowledge of business procedures with her calculated assessment of my vulnerabilities and her strategic positioning within the family structure to ensure maximum control over the property management process, while maintaining cover as a devoted family member providing essential financial protection during my apparent final years. The systematic documentation that Patricia maintained about my apparent financial confusion and increasing dependency created comprehensive records that would support her narrative of progressive cognitive decline affecting my legal capacity and requiring family intervention in estate planning and financial decision-making to ensure appropriate asset protection and property transfer according to my apparent wishes and family financial planning goals. Patricia's assessment of my apparent legal naivete was based on her observation of my trusting acceptance of her explanations about property management procedures, estate planning requirements, and legal filing deadlines that suggested cognitive decline affecting my ability to understand complex legal concepts and requiring family protection against potential exploitation by unscrupulous legal professionals or financial advisors who might take advantage of my apparent confusion and vulnerability during my declining years. The strategic timing of Patricia's documentation of my apparent financial crisis coincided with important family financial decisions, estate planning deadlines, and property management requirements that would require my signature and informed consent for legal changes that could significantly affect asset distribution and property ownership. Her systematic record-keeping about my cognitive decline provided justification for family involvement in these critical legal and financial decisions, while positioning herself as the essential coordinator and decision-maker. Patricia's systematic manipulation of family perceptions about my declining financial capacity included strategic coordination of her observations with Marcus's natural concerns about my aging, his emotional investment in my welfare, and his professional obligations that limited his ability to provide direct supervision of my daily financial needs and estate planning requirements. Her business expertise provided professional validation for his concerns, while positioning herself as the obvious solution for increasing financial oversight and family coordination. The comprehensive documentation that Patricia maintained about my apparent financial incapacity, cognitive decline, and increasing dependency created systematic evidence that would support legal proceedings for conservatorship, guardianship arrangements, and estate planning modifications that would give Patricia and Marcus comprehensive authority over my legal decisions and financial management, during what appeared to be progressive mental deterioration, requiring professional intervention and family protection from potential exploitation or poor decision-making. The cultural stereotypes that reinforced Patricia's assessment of my financial vulnerability included ageist assumptions about elderly women's understanding of complex business procedures, gender-based prejudices about property management capabilities, and professional arrogance based on her marketing training that created systematic blind spots preventing recognition of my superior business knowledge and legal expertise. Her confidence in exploiting what she perceived as financial confusion. Connie was identical to the criminal psychology that had been documented in comprehensive studies of elder financial abuse networks, targeting elderly individuals with valuable assets and apparent cognitive limitations. Patricia's strategic assessment of my apparent physical limitations included detailed observation of my mobility restrictions following hip replacement surgery, my reliance on assistance with certain household tasks, and my takery. Apparent fatigue during lengthy financial discussions that she interpreted as evidence of declining stamina and cognitive capacity affecting my ability to manage complex legal and financial responsibilities requiring sustained attention and analytical thinking. The environmental factors that Patricia identified as supporting her assessment of my vulnerability included my apparent isolation in the Karanayev large family home following Robert's death, my reduced social interactions with longtime friends and professional associates, and my apparent withdrawal from community activities and business networks that had previously provided oversight and social support for independent decision-making and financial management. Patricia's systematic analysis of my communication patterns included detailed observation of my telephone conversations with financial institutions and legal professionals, my apparent difficulty with complex written correspondence, and my increasing reliance on simplified explanations and family assistance for understanding legal documents and financial statements that suggested progressive cognitive decline requiring comprehensive family intervention and professional oversight. The economic factors that Patricia identified as motivation for her systematic exploitation included her assessment of the Kamamis, substantial value of the Hillcrest Estate property, the significant assets contained in family investment portfolios, and the potential for systematic appropriation of family wealth through careful manipulation of legal procedures and exploitation of my apparent cognitive limitations and emotional vulnerability. Patricia's strategic planning for long-term control over family assets included systematic preparation for legal challenges to her authority. Through comprehensive documentation of my apparent incapacity, careful coordination with Marcus to build family consensus about the necessity of protective intervention, and detailed planning for potential resistance from external legal or financial professionals who might question her systematic appropriation of decision-making authority over valuable family assets. The psychological manipulation techniques that Patricia systematically employed included strategic use of emotional pressure and family loyalty to prevent independent analysis of her financial claims, systematic creation of time pressures and artificial deadlines to prevent careful verification of her authority over family assets, and comprehensive exploitation of my grief and emotional vulnerability to build dependency on her guidance and prevent independent consultation with external legal or financial professionals. Patricia's confidence in her systematic assessment of my vulnerability was based on her professional experience with consumer psychology and behavioral analysis, her assumption that elderly individuals represented predictable targets for financial exploitation, and her belief that family relationships provided adequate cover for comprehensive appropriation of legal and financial authority over valuable assets and property ownership rights. The moment when Patricia's systematic assessment of my apparent vulnerabilities reached its final confirmation was when she observed my apparent grateful acceptance of her announcement that the garden shed had been converted into, quote, comfortable independent living quarters that would provide me with privacy and dignity, while allowing her and Marcus to, quote, properly maintain the family estate through comprehensive renovations and improvements, never suspecting that her systematic elder abuse was being carefully documented by someone whose legal ownership of every asset she was systematically stealing would soon result in the complete destruction of her comfortable lifestyle and the shocking realization that she had been systematically abusing the actual owner of everything she had assumed belonged to her family. The financial desperation that drove Patricia Wellington to systematically exploit what she believed was a vulnerable elderly woman had been building for over 3 years, beginning with the catastrophic collapse of her boutique marketing agency during the economic uncertainties of 2020, when her primary corporate clients had terminated their contracts within a span of 6 weeks, leaving her with accumulated business debts exceeding $180,000. Personal credit obligations that had spiraled beyond her ability to manage, and the devastating realization that her carefully constructed image of professional success and financial stability was nothing more than an elaborate facade built on credit extensions and deferred payments that would soon result in bankruptcy, professional ruin, and the complete destruction of the luxurious lifestyle she had worked so hard to achieve. Patricia's descent into financial crisis had begun innocuously enough with what she justified as temporary business expenses charged to personal credit accounts during the initial months of economic uncertainty, when corporate clients had delayed payments and reduced marketing budgets while she maintained expensive office space, professional staff, and the high-end lifestyle that she believed was essential for attracting and retaining wealthy clients. Her systematic rationalization of increased personal spending as necessary business investments had created a dangerous psychological pattern that enabled her to justify progressively larger financial risks and increasingly desperate attempts to maintain appearances, while her actual financial situation deteriorated beyond any possibility of legitimate recovery. The specific timeline of Patricia's financial collapse revealed a systematic progression from manageable business challenges to catastrophic personal crisis that had transformed her from a moderately successful marketing professional into someone whose desperation had made systematic elder abuse seem like a reasonable solution to her mounting problems. Her initial optimism about economic recovery and client retention had gradually given way to panic-driven decision-making and increasingly unethical financial strategies that had ultimately led her to view family relationships and elderly vulnerability as opportunities for systematic exploitation rather than sources of support, and mutual care. Patricia's professional background in marketing and advertising had provided her with sophisticated, the tightest understanding of psychological manipulation techniques, consumer behavior analysis, and systematic persuasion strategies that she had successfully employed throughout her career to influence purchasing decisions and brand loyalty among target demographics. Her expertise in identifying psychological vulnerabilities, exploiting emotional triggers, and creating artificial needs and dependencies among the consumer populations. The Patricia had given her dangerous confidence in her ability to manipulate la imitation section science family relationships and exploit elderly vulnerability for personal financial gain. The psychological profile that emerged from Patricia's systematic approach to financial exploitation revealed someone whose professional success had been built on careful observation of human weaknesses and systematic manipulation of decision-making processes, creating a personality type that viewed personal relationships as strategic opportunities rather than calculus. Vada sabai sa kavais is in megi wana biog. Chikai kwaiwalan vais as sources of genuine emotional connection. Her marketing background had trained her to identify target audiences, develop systematic campaigns for behavioral modification, and measure success through quantifiable outcomes that could be optimized through careful analysis and strategic adjustment of manipulation techniques. Patricia's personal history of financial management revealed a consistent pattern of living beyond her means, while maintaining elaborate facades of success and stability that required increasingly sophisticated deception and financial manipulation to sustain. Her systematic approach to credit management, debt consolidation, and expense deferral had created temporary solutions that ultimately compounded her financial problems while teaching her the psychological techniques necessary for maintaining false appearances and preventing external detection of her true financial situation. The cultural factors that had shaped Patricia's worldview included deep-seated beliefs about social status, material success, and family hierarchy that had convinced her that marriage to Marcus represented not just emotional partnership, but strategic access to family wealth and property ownership that she viewed as partially hers by right of marriage and social position. Her systematic interpretation of family relationships through the lens of financial opportunity rather than emotional connection had created psychological blind spots that prevented her from recognizing the moral and legal boundaries that should have governed her interactions with elderly family members. Patricia's systematic study of elder psychology and family dynamics had been conducted through what she rationalized as legitimate concern for family welfare, but which actually represented comprehensive research into the most effective techniques for exploiting elderly vulnerability and building systematic control over family financial decisions. Her careful observation of successful elder abuse cases reported in news media, combined with her professional knowledge of psychological manipulation, had provided her with detailed understanding of the criminal methodologies that she would eventually employ against someone she assumed was a helpless elderly victim. The specific financial pressures that had driven Patricia to consider elder abuse as a viable solution included mounting credit card debts that had reached critical payment thresholds, business loan obligations that required immediate attention to prevent legal action, and personal expenses that had spiraled beyond any possibility of legitimate income recovery. Her systematic analysis of family assets and property values had revealed that successful exploitation of my apparent vulnerability could provide immediate access to financial resources far exceeding anything she could achieve through legitimate business recovery or employment opportunities. Patricia's coordination with Marcus in implementing systematic elder abuse had required careful manipulation of his genuine concerns about my welfare, while concealing her true motivations and the extent of her financial desperation. Her systematic presentation of my apparent cognitive decline as urgent family crisis requiring immediate intervention had exploited Marcus's emotional investment in my welfare, while preventing his independent analysis of her claims about the necessity of comprehensive financial oversight and property management. The timeline of Patricia's escalation from financial pressure to systematic criminal planning revealed a gradual progression from desperate cost-cutting measures to increasingly unethical financial strategies that had ultimately resulted in her decision to exploit family relationships for systematic theft of assets and property ownership rights. Her careful documentation of this progression demonstrated sophisticated criminal planning that combined her professional knowledge of psychological manipulation with systematic analysis of legal vulnerabilities and family dynamics. Patricia's systematic analysis of legal vulnerabilities included comprehensive research into elder abuse statutes, guardianship procedures, and estate planning regulations that revealed potential loopholes and enforcement limitations that could be exploited through careful manipulation of medical and psychological evidence. Her professional background in marketing research had provided her with the analytical skills necessary to identify systematic weaknesses in legal protection systems, while developing comprehensive strategies for avoiding detection and prosecution. The psychological rationalization that Patricia employed to justify her systematic elder abuse included elaborate mental frameworks that presented her actions as necessary family protection rather than criminal exploitation, temporary assistance rather than permanent theft, and compassionate intervention rather than systematic abuse. Her ability to construct these rationalization systems demonstrated sophisticated psychological defense mechanisms that enabled her to maintain self-image as caring family member while implementing comprehensive criminal enterprise. The systematic approach that Patricia employed for avoiding detection included careful study of law enforcement procedures for elder abuse investigation, comprehensive analysis of forensic accounting techniques used in financial crime prosecution, and detailed preparation of cover stories and evidence that would provide plausible explanations for any irregularities that might be discovered during initial investigation before she could complete asset transfer and permanent relocation. Patricia's coordination with professional services for implementing her criminal enterprise included systematic consultation with financial advisors about asset transfer procedures, legal research into estate planning modification requirements, and comprehensive preparation of documentation that would support her claims about family financial management and elder care responsibilities. Her ability to maintain professional appearances while implementing systematic criminal planning demonstrated sophisticated deception capabilities and comprehensive understanding of legal and financial systems. The specific techniques that Patricia developed for psychological manipulation of elderly victims included systematic exploitation of grief and emotional vulnerability, comprehensive use of medical and legal complexity to create confusion and dependency, and strategic manipulation of family relationships to prevent external oversight and independent verification of her claims about financial management and estate planning requirements. Patricia's systematic documentation of her criminal planning included detailed records of financial obligations and pressure that motivated her criminal activities, comprehensive analysis of target vulnerabilities and exploitation opportunities, and systematic preparation for potential legal challenges and investigation that might result from her elder abuse activities. Her maintenance of these records demonstrated both criminal sophistication and dangerous overconfidence in her ability to avoid detection and prosecution. The cultural assumptions that reinforced Patricia's confidence in her systematic elder abuse included stereotypical beliefs about elderly women's diminished capacity for independent decision-making, prejudices about family hierarchy and inheritance rights that justified her appropriation of household authority, and ageist assumptions about the appropriate role of elderly family members in property management and financial planning that provided psychological justification for systematic exploitation and abuse. Patricia's professional network connections that she planned to exploit for her criminal enterprise included financial advisors who specialized in asset transfer and estate planning, legal professionals who provided consultation on guardianship and conservatorship procedures, and medical professionals who could provide supporting documentation for claims about cognitive decline and mental incapacity, requiring family intervention and protective oversight. The systematic escalation of Patricia's criminal activities from initial family manipulation to comprehensive elder abuse and property theft demonstrated dangerous progression of criminal thinking that had been enabled by her professional knowledge of psychological manipulation and her systematic rationalization of family relationships as opportunities for financial exploitation rather than sources of mutual support and emotional connection. Patricia's detailed planning for international relocation following successful asset theft included preparation of false identity documentation, establishment of offshore banking relationships, and comprehensive strategy for permanent disappearance that would prevent law enforcement recovery of stolen assets or criminal prosecution for systematic elder abuse and property theft. Her systematic preparation for these activities revealed comprehensive understanding of international financial crime and asset concealment techniques. The psychological profile that emerged from Patricia's systematic approach to elder abuse revealed someone whose professional background in marketing and advertising had created dangerous expertise in identifying and exploiting human vulnerabilities, while maintaining false appearances of legitimate concern and professional competence. Her ability to systematically manipulate family relationships while concealing criminal motivations demonstrated sophisticated psychological manipulation capabilities and comprehensive understanding of elder vulnerability and family dynamics. The systematic approach that Patricia employed for avoiding detection included careful study of law enforcement procedures for elder abuse investigation, comprehensive analysis of forensic accounting techniques used in financial crime prosecution, and detailed preparation of cover stories and evidence that would provide plausible explanations for any irregularities that might be discovered during initial investigation before she could complete asset transfer and permanent relocation. Patricia's coordination with professional services for implementing her criminal enterprise included systematic consultation with financial advisors about asset transfer procedures, legal research into estate planning modification requirements, and comprehensive preparation of documentation that would support her claims about family financial management and elder care responsibilities. Her ability to maintain professional appearances while implementing systematic criminal planning demonstrated sophisticated deception capabilities and comprehensive understanding of legal and financial systems. The specific techniques that Patricia developed for psychological manipulation of elderly victims included systematic exploitation of grief and emotional vulnerability, comprehensive use of medical and legal complexity to create confusion and dependency, and strategic manipulation of family relationships to prevent external oversight and independent verification of her claims about financial management and estate planning requirements. Patricia's systematic documentation of her criminal planning included detailed records of financial obligations and pressure that motivated her criminal activities, comprehensive analysis of target vulnerabilities and exploitation opportunities, and systematic preparation for potential legal challenges and investigation that might result from her elder abuse activities. Her maintenance of these records demonstrated both criminal sophistication and dangerous overconfidence in her ability to avoid detection and prosecution. The cultural assumptions that reinforced Patricia's confidence in her systematic elder abuse included stereotypical beliefs about elderly women's diminished capacity for independent decision-making, prejudices about family hierarchy and inheritance rights that justified her appropriation of household authority, and ageist assumptions about the appropriate role of elderly family members in property management and financial planning that provided psychological justification for systematic exploitation and abuse. Patricia's professional network connections that she planned to exploit for her criminal enterprise included financial advisors who specialized in asset transfer and estate planning, legal professionals who provided consultation on guardianship and conservatorship procedures, and medical professionals who could provide supporting documentation for claims about cognitive decline and mental incapacity requiring family intervention and protective oversight. The systematic escalation of Patricia's criminal activities, from initial family manipulation to comprehensive elder abuse and property theft, demonstrated dangerous progression of criminal thinking that had been enabled by her professional knowledge of psychological manipulation and her systematic rationalization of family relationships as opportunities for financial exploitation rather than sources of mutual support and emotional connection. Patricia's detailed planning for international relocation following successful asset theft included preparation of false identity documentation, establishment of offshore banking relationships, and comprehensive strategy for permanent disappearance that would prevent law enforcement recovery of stolen assets or criminal prosecution for systematic elder abuse and property theft. Her systematic preparation for these activities revealed comprehensive understanding of international financial crime and asset concealment techniques. The psychological profile that emerged from Patricia's systematic approach to elder abuse revealed someone whose professional background in marketing and advertising had created dangerous expertise in identifying and exploiting human vulnerabilities, while maintaining false appearances of legitimate concern and professional competence. Her ability to systematically manipulate family relationships while concealing criminal motivations demonstrated sophisticated psychological manipulation capabilities and comprehensive understanding of elder vulnerability and family dynamics. Patricia's systematic analysis of law enforcement capabilities and investigation procedures had revealed what she believed were significant limitations in elder abuse detection and prosecution that could be exploited through careful manipulation of evidence and systematic concealment of criminal activities. Her confidence in her ability to avoid detection was based on professional understanding of information management and systematic deception that she assumed would be sufficient to prevent external oversight and legal intervention. The financial calculations that Patricia had conducted regarding potential asset recovery from systematic elder abuse revealed comprehensive understanding of property values, investment portfolio composition, and estate planning structures that demonstrated sophisticated analysis of family wealth and systematic planning for comprehensive theft of assets and property ownership rights. Her detailed financial projections revealed both criminal sophistication and dangerous overconfidence in her ability to successfully implement comprehensive elder abuse without detection or legal consequences. Patricia's systematic coordination of family manipulation with external professional consultation demonstrated comprehensive planning that combined psychological exploitation of family relationships with strategic use of legitimate professional services to provide cover for criminal activities. Her ability to maintain appearances of legitimate concern while implementing systematic elder abuse revealed sophisticated deception capabilities and comprehensive understanding of professional and legal systems that could be exploited for criminal purposes. The moment when Patricia's financial desperation reached its culminating decision to implement systematic elder abuse was when she realized that her accumulated debts and obligations had reached critical thresholds that would result in immediate bankruptcy and professional ruin unless she could access substantial financial resources within a matter of weeks, never suspecting that her systematic targeting of what she assumed was a vulnerable elderly woman would actually result in her confrontation with someone whose comprehensive documentation of her criminal activities would soon result in federal prosecution for systematic elder abuse and the complete destruction of it. The methodical precision with which Patricia Wellington executed her elder abuse scheme against what she believed was a vulnerable elderly widow demonstrated the dangerous combination of professional psychological manipulation skills and systematic criminal intent that had been developing during the 12 months since her financial crisis had reached catastrophic proportions, forcing her to view her marketing expertise not as tools for legitimate business success but as weapons for comprehensive exploitation of family relationships and elderly vulnerability that would solve her mounting debt problems through the most audacious property theft and elder abuse. Patricia's systematic approach to implementing elder abuse began with what she rationalized as comprehensive assessment of my cognitive capabilities and physical limitations, conducted through carefully orchestrated family visits and household assistance that were designed to appear as legitimate concern, while actually serving as reconnaissance missions for identifying exploitable vulnerabilities and developing detailed plans for systematic manipulation and control. Her professional background in consumer psychology had taught her that successful manipulation required thorough understanding of target psychology, systematic identification of emotional triggers, and careful development of influence strategies that could be implemented gradually without triggering suspicion or resistance. The timeline of Patricia's escalation from reconnaissance to active manipulation revealed a calculated progression that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of psychological conditioning and systematic behavior modification. Her initial phase focused on establishing herself as indispensable family support during my grief recovery, gradually increasing her involvement in household decisions, while carefully documenting my apparent reliance on her assistance and guidance. This foundation period lasted approximately 6 weeks and was designed to create psychological dependency while gathering intelligence about family financial assets and legal structures. Patricia's systematic approach to financial reconnaissance included careful analysis of mail delivery to identify financial institutions and legal correspondence, strategic observation of my telephone conversations with banks and investment advisors, and gradual assumption of responsibility for household paperwork and document management that provided her with comprehensive access to family financial information. Her marketing background had taught her the importance of detailed customer research and competitive analysis, skills that she applied to systematic investigation of family wealth and property ownership structures. The psychological manipulation techniques that Patricia employed during her systematic takeover of household authority were based on proven marketing strategies for building consumer dependency and brand loyalty, adapted for exploitation of elderly vulnerability and family relationships. Her systematic use of complexity and confusion to create artificial dependency included deliberate presentation of financial information in overwhelming formats, strategic emphasis on urgent deadlines and crisis situations that required immediate family intervention, and comprehensive exploitation of my emotional vulnerability following Robert's death. Patricia's coordination with Marcus in implementing systematic elder abuse required sophisticated manipulation of his genuine concerns about my welfare, while concealing her true motivations and criminal planning. Her systematic presentation of my apparent cognitive decline included careful documentation of fabricated incidents and strategic interpretation of normal grief responses as evidence of mental incapacity requiring immediate family protection and professional intervention. Her ability to manipulate Marcus's emotional investment in my welfare while preventing his independent analysis of her claims demonstrated advanced psychological manipulation skills developed through years of professional experience in consumer behavior modification. The systematic documentation that Patricia maintained throughout her elder abuse campaign included detailed records of my alleged cognitive failures, comprehensive analysis of family financial assets and legal vulnerabilities, and strategic planning for accelerated property transfer and asset liquidation that would provide her with permanent financial security. Her professional training in marketing research and data analysis had taught her the importance of systematic record-keeping and evidence documentation for measuring campaign effectiveness and optimizing manipulation strategies. Patricia's systematic approach to physical displacement and living condition degradation was implemented through carefully planned stages that gradually normalized increasingly unacceptable treatment, while maintaining plausible explanations for each escalation. Her initial suggestion that I relocate to the guest bedroom was presented as temporary comfort during grief recovery, followed by systematic restrictions on common area access justified as necessary for property maintenance and family privacy, culminating in the garden shed conversion that she presented as independent living accommodation rather than systematic banishment and abuse. The financial manipulation that accompanied Patricia's physical abuse included systematic assumption of responsibility for household expenses and property management, strategic presentation of utility bills and maintenance costs as overwhelming burdens requiring immediate family intervention, and gradual transfer of financial decision-making authority that she presented as temporary assistance during my recovery period but which represented comprehensive theft of legal and financial control over assets that legally belonged to me. Patricia's systematic approach to isolating me from external oversight included strategic limitation of my contact with longtime friends and professional associates, comprehensive control over household communication systems, and systematic interception of mail and telephone calls that might provide independent verification of her claims about family financial status and my cognitive capacity. Her professional experience in information management and strategic communication had taught her the importance of controlling information flow to prevent external interference with systematic manipulation campaigns. The legal manipulation that Patricia systematically implemented included comprehensive research into guardianship and conservatorship procedures, strategic consultation with legal professionals about estate planning modification requirements, and systematic preparation of documentation that would support her claims about my mental incapacity and need for family protection. Her systematic study of elder abuse statutes and legal protection limitations had revealed potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited through careful manipulation of medical and psychological evidence. Patricia's systematic approach to medical manipulation included strategic coordination with healthcare providers to build medical documentation supporting her claims about my cognitive decline, systematic presentation of my legitimate health concerns as evidence of overall incapacity, and comprehensive exploitation of my physical limitations following hip replacement surgery to create false impressions of comprehensive disability requiring family supervision and protective intervention. The technological manipulation that Patricia employed included systematic control over household internet and telephone access, strategic monitoring of my electronic communications and online activities, and comprehensive prevention of my independent access to financial accounts and legal resources that might enable resistance to her systematic appropriation of household authority and financial control. Her professional background in digital marketing had provided her with sophisticated understanding of information technology systems and electronic communication monitoring. Patricia's systematic approach to psychological conditioning included strategic use of reward and punishment systems to reinforce my apparent dependency on her assistance, comprehensive exploitation of my emotional vulnerability and grief to prevent independent analysis of her systematic appropriation of household authority, and systematic manipulation of family dynamics to create consensus about the necessity of protective intervention and comprehensive oversight of my legal and financial decision-making. The systematic timing of Patricia's escalation to comprehensive elder abuse was carefully coordinated with external factors that would provide cover for her criminal activities, including seasonal property maintenance requirements that justified temporary living arrangement modifications, holiday periods when external oversight would be reduced, and financial planning deadlines that created artificial urgency for estate planning modifications and asset transfer procedures. Patricia's systematic approach to avoiding detection included comprehensive study of law enforcement procedures for elder abuse investigation, strategic consultation with legal professionals about potential criminal liability and defense strategies, and systematic preparation of cover stories and evidence that would provide plausible explanations for any irregularities that might be discovered during initial investigation, before she could complete asset transfer and permanent relocation. The systematic coordination of multiple manipulation techniques demonstrated Patricia's sophisticated understanding of comprehensive elder abuse methodology, combining psychological manipulation with financial exploitation, physical abuse with legal manipulation, and family relationship exploitation with systematic isolation from external oversight. Her ability to implement multiple criminal strategies simultaneously while maintaining appearances of legitimate family concern revealed advanced criminal planning capabilities and comprehensive understanding of elder vulnerability and family dynamics. Patricia's systematic approach to asset liquidation planning included detailed research into property transfer procedures and legal requirements, comprehensive analysis of investment portfolio composition and liquidation strategies, and systematic preparation for international asset transfer and money laundering that would place stolen wealth beyond the reach of legal recovery. Her professional background in financial analysis and strategic planning had provided her with sophisticated understanding of asset management and wealth preservation techniques that she adapted for criminal purposes. The systematic escalation of Patricia's physical abuse included carefully planned degradation of my living conditions that was implemented through graduated stages designed to normalize increasingly unacceptable treatment while preventing sudden changes that might trigger external attention or legal intervention. Her systematic conversion of the garden shed into what she presented as acceptable living accommodation demonstrated sophisticated understanding of how to implement elder abuse while maintaining plausible explanations for her actions. Patricia's systematic manipulation of family narratives included comprehensive control over information shared with external friends and family members, strategic presentation of my apparent cognitive decline as natural aging process requiring family protection, and systematic prevention of independent verification of her claims about my mental capacity and need for protective intervention. Her professional experience in public relations and narrative management had taught her sophisticated techniques for controlling public perception and preventing external interference. The systematic documentation of Patricia's criminal enterprise included detailed records of financial motivations and pressure that justified her criminal activities, comprehensive analysis of target vulnerabilities and exploitation strategies, and systematic preparation for potential legal challenges and investigation that might result from her elder abuse activities. Her maintenance of these records demonstrated both criminal sophistication and dangerous overconfidence in her ability to avoid detection and prosecution. Patricia's systematic approach to professional consultation included strategic use of legitimate legal and financial advisors to provide cover for her criminal activities, comprehensive presentation of fabricated family situations to justify unauthorized asset transfers and property modifications, and systematic exploitation of professional confidentiality and limited oversight to prevent detection of her criminal manipulation and elder abuse. The systematic coordination of Patricia's criminal activities with external timelines included careful planning around legal deadlines and financial reporting requirements, strategic coordination with property maintenance and improvement schedules that justified temporary living arrangement modifications, and comprehensive alignment with family schedules and social obligations that would minimize external oversight and independent verification of her systematic elder abuse and property theft. Patricia's systematic approach to evidence management included comprehensive destruction of documentation that might reveal her criminal planning and financial motivations, strategic preservation of records that supported her narrative of legitimate family concern and protective intervention, and systematic preparation of alternative explanations and cover stories for any irregularities that might be discovered during investigation of her systematic elder abuse and property theft. The systematic nature of Patricia's criminal enterprise demonstrated sophisticated understanding of elder abuse methodology and comprehensive planning for avoiding detection and prosecution, while implementing systematic theft of assets and property ownership rights. Her professional background in marketing and psychological manipulation had provided her with dangerous expertise in identifying and exploiting human vulnerabilities while maintaining false appearances of legitimate concern and family protection. Patricia's systematic escalation to comprehensive elder abuse represented the culmination of months of careful planning and psychological manipulation that had gradually normalized increasingly criminal behavior, while building systematic justification for comprehensive property theft and elder exploitation. Her confidence in her ability to successfully implement systematic elder abuse without detection was based on professional understanding of psychological manipulation and systematic analysis of legal and enforcement limitations that she assumed would prevent effective intervention. The moment when Patricia's systematic approach reached its final implementation phase was when she confidently announced the completion of garden shed conversion and my permanent relocation to what she presented as comfortable independent living quarters, never suspecting that her systematic elder abuse was being comprehensively documented by someone whose legal ownership of every asset she was systematically stealing would soon trigger federal investigation and prosecution that would result in the complete destruction of her criminal enterprise and permanent imprisonment for systematic elder abuse and property theft involving comprehensive exploitation of family relationships and elderly vulnerability. What Patricia Wellington never discovered, despite her systematic surveillance of my daily routines and methodical documentation of my apparent cognitive limitations and physical dependencies, was that Margaret Wellington had spent 42 years transforming from a young secretary at Riverside Development Corporation into one of the most successful commercial property investors and estate management specialists on the West Coast, personally overseeing real estate transactions exceeding $500 million in value, developing comprehensive legal expertise in property law and estate planning that had enabled her to build a vast portfolio of commercial and residential properties across 3 states, and maintaining active professional relationships with attorneys, financial advisors, and property management specialists who provided ongoing consultation and oversight for one of the most sophisticated privately held real estate empires in California. My professional journey in commercial real estate and property investment had begun in 1978 as a young administrative assistant. at Riverside Development Corporation, where my natural aptitude for financial analysis and systematic attention to legal detail had attracted the attention of senior partners who recognized my potential for advanced real estate education and investment strategy development. My systematic progression from administrative support to junior analyst to senior investment coordinator had been accomplished through evening law school education, advanced certification in real estate finance and property management, and comprehensive training in estate planning and wealth preservation strategies that had prepared me for independent property investment and management. The educational foundation that supported my real estate expertise included a bachelor's degree in business administration from UC Riverside, a master's degree in real estate finance from USC Marshall School of Business, advanced certification in commercial property investment from the National Association of Realtors, comprehensive training in estate planning and trust administration from the American College of Trust and Estate Council, and specialized education in international property investment and asset protection from the Wharton School of Business. These credentials had been systematically accumulated during evening and weekend programs while maintaining full-time employment in the real estate industry, demonstrating the dedication and analytical rigor that would later characterize my approach to building and managing substantial property portfolios. My transition from corporate employee to independent property investor had occurred during the early 1980s, when the savings and loan crisis had created unprecedented opportunities for acquiring distressed commercial properties. Significantly below market values. My systematic analysis of market conditions, combined with access to private investment capital through my professional network, had enabled me to acquire my first commercial property, a 50,000 square foot office complex in downtown Riverside, that became the foundation for what would eventually grow into a diversified portfolio of commercial buildings, residential developments, and investment properties across California, Nevada, and Arizona. The scope of my property investment activities had encompassed every aspect of commercial real estate development and management, including acquisition of distressed properties and comprehensive renovation projects, development of commercial office complexes and retail shopping centers, management of residential apartment communities and condominium developments, and strategic investment in agricultural properties and recreational land that provided both immediate income and long-term appreciation potential. My systematic approach to property acquisition and management had resulted in consistent annual returns exceeding 15% and total portfolio appreciation that had generated substantial wealth accumulation over 4 decades of strategic investment. The specific properties that I personally owned and managed included the Hillcrest Estate residential property where Patricia was systematically implementing elder abuse, the Riverside Commerce Center consisting of 12 commercial buildings housing over 200 businesses, the Sunset Gardens residential community containing 300 apartment units and townhomes, the Desert Springs Resort property in Palm Desert featuring luxury accommodations and recreational facilities, the Central Valley agricultural properties comprising over 2,000 acres of prime farmland, and the Pacific Coast vacation rental properties provided. My expertise in estate planning and wealth preservation had encompassed comprehensive legal strategies for protecting assets from potential creditors and legal challenges, sophisticated trust structures for minimizing tax liability and ensuring proper inheritance distribution, advanced techniques for international asset diversification and protection, and systematic planning for charitable giving and philanthropic activities that provided both tax benefits and community support. My collaboration with estate planning attorneys and tax specialists had resulted in comprehensive legal structures that protected family wealth, while providing maximum flexibility for future financial planning and asset management. The professional recognition that I had received for my contributions to real estate development and property management included the California Association of Realtors Lifetime Achievement Award for Outstanding Contributions to Commercial Property Development, the National Property Management Association Distinguished Service Award for Innovative Approaches to Residential Community Management, the USC Marshall School of Business Alumni Recognition for Excellence in Real Estate Finance and Investment Strategy, and the Riverside County Chamber of Commerce Business Leadership Award for Outstanding Contributions to Local. The legal relationships that I had developed during my career included ongoing consultation with real estate attorneys specializing in commercial property transactions and dispute resolution, estate planning lawyers focusing on complex trust structures and wealth preservation strategies, tax attorneys providing expertise in property investment taxation and international asset protection, and litigation specialists experienced in property disputes and contract enforcement that provided comprehensive legal support for all aspects of property investment and management activities. My business consulting work following semi-retirement from active property development had included expert consultation on major commercial real estate transactions, development of investment strategies for institutional property portfolios, training programs for real estate professionals on advanced investment techniques and property management systems, and ongoing advisory services for high net worth individuals seeking sophisticated property investment and wealth preservation strategies. The specialized knowledge and analytical capabilities that I had developed through decades of property investment included comprehensive understanding of real estate market cycles and investment timing strategies, detailed expertise in property valuation and financial analysis techniques, systematic knowledge of zoning regulations and development approval processes, and advanced capabilities in contract negotiation and legal documentation that enabled successful completion of complex property transactions and development projects. The professional network that I had developed during my career included commercial real estate brokers and investment advisors throughout the western United States, property management companies specializing in commercial and residential property operations, construction contractors and development specialists experienced in large-scale renovation and building projects, and financial institutions providing commercial lending and investment banking services for real estate transactions and portfolio management. My systematic approach to property investment and management included comprehensive market analysis and investment opportunity evaluation, detailed financial modeling and risk assessment for potential acquisitions, systematic property improvement and value enhancement strategies, and ongoing performance monitoring and portfolio optimization that ensured maximum returns and long-term wealth preservation. This methodology had resulted in consistent profitability and substantial wealth accumulation that provided complete financial independence and security. The database systems and information resources that I maintained included comprehensive records of property acquisition costs and improvement investments, detailed financial performance data for all portfolio properties, systematic market analysis and competitive intelligence for investment planning, and complete legal documentation for all property transactions and management agreements that provided comprehensive oversight and protection for substantial real estate investments. My expertise in property law and legal procedures had been developed through systematic study of real estate regulations and contract law, comprehensive training in landlord-tenant relationships and property management legal requirements, detailed knowledge of zoning laws and development regulations, and advanced understanding of estate planning law and trust administration that enabled effective legal protection and strategic planning for complex property portfolios and family wealth preservation. The financial management systems that I had developed for property investment included sophisticated accounting and reporting procedures for tracking property performance and tax obligations, comprehensive insurance and risk management strategies for protecting property investments and personal assets, systematic cash flow management and reinvestment strategies for maximizing portfolio growth, and advanced estate planning techniques for ensuring proper inheritance distribution and tax minimization. The international diversification that I had implemented for asset protection included property investments in European real estate markets through Luxembourg holding companies, Swiss banking relationships for secure financial management and currency diversification, offshore trust structures in favorable legal jurisdictions for asset protection and estate planning, and international insurance policies providing comprehensive coverage for global property investments and personal liability protection. My specialized knowledge of elder law and estate protection had been developed through personal experience with family estate planning and systematic study of legal strategies for protecting elderly individuals from financial exploitation and abuse. My comprehensive understanding of guardianship and conservatorship procedures, elder abuse statutes and legal protections, and financial crime investigation techniques had provided me with detailed knowledge of exactly the type of systematic exploitation that Patricia was attempting to implement against someone whose legal expertise far exceeded anything she could imagine. The systematic documentation that I maintained for all property transactions and legal activities included comprehensive records of property acquisition and improvement investments, detailed financial performance data and tax documentation, complete legal correspondence and contract documentation, and systematic evidence collection procedures that I had developed for protecting against potential legal challenges and ensuring proper documentation of all business activities and personal interactions. The security measures that I had implemented for protecting property investments and personal assets included comprehensive insurance coverage for all property investments and personal liability protection, sophisticated alarm and surveillance systems for monitoring property security and preventing unauthorized access, systematic background investigation procedures for all property management personnel and service providers, and advanced legal structures for protecting assets from potential creditors and legal challenges. My ongoing education and professional development included regular attendance at banished, real estate investment conferences and professional training programs, systematic study of emerging trends in property investment and wealth preservation strategies, ongoing consultation with legal and financial professionals about regulatory changes and new opportunities, and comprehensive monitoring of market conditions and prestige, causal factors affecting property investment performance and prestige, strategic planning, the charitable and philanthropic activities that I had developed through my property investment success. Included establishment of scholarship funds for real estate education and professional development, support for housing assistance programs, and community development initiatives, funding for legal aid services specializing in stadtval, elder law and estate planning, and comprehensive charitable giving strategies that provided both community benefit and tax advantages while supporting causes related to education, housing, and elderly protection. Bakil Tiny had developed for family wealth preservation and inheritance planning included comprehensive trust structures for protecting assets and ensuring proper distribution to future generations, detailed estate planning documentation, and legal procedures for minimizing tax liability and legal challenges, systematic education programs for Tolio family members about wealth management and investment strategies, Minalofti management, ongoing oversight and management of family assets that ensured continued growth and protection. My expertise in detecting and preventing financial fraud had been developed through Omaticom, personal experience with a biafra, property investments scams and systematic study of elder firemen, financial abuse techniques and prevention strategies. My comprehensive understanding of document fraud, identity theft, and systematic financial exploitation had provided me with detailed knowledge of the criminal methodologies that Patricia was employing while giving me sophisticated capabilities for documenting and prosecuting exactly the type of elder abuse and property theft that she was systematically implementing. The moment when I realized basically that Patricia's systematic elder abuse represented a textbook case of the financial exploitation patterns that I had studied and prepared defenses against was when I discovered that her systematic approach to property appropriation and elder manipulation matched precisely the criminal methodologies that I had encountered in real estate fraud investigations, never suspecting that her systematic targeting of what she assumed was a vulnerable elderly victim was actually being implemented against someone whose comprehensive property ownership, legal expertise, and professional relationships would guarantee not just her immediate detection and prosecution, but the complete destruction of her criminal enterprise and permanent imprisonment for attempting to steal property from the actual legal owner, whose real estate portfolio and wealth far exceeded anything she had imagined possible. The comprehensive arsenal of legal, financial, and investigative capabilities that Patricia Wellington unknowingly challenged when she decided to commit systematic elder abuse against Margaret Wellington represented the culmination of 42 years of sophisticated real estate investment, advanced legal education, and systematic wealth preservation strategies that had created one of the most formidable combinations of property ownership authority, legal expertise, and professional resources available to any private individual in the Western United States, establishing a defensive and offensive capability that could instantly mobilize against elder abuse attempts through immediate legal action, comprehensive asset protection, and systematic prosecution of criminal activities targeting elderly property owners. The legal documentation and ownership structures that I maintained for comprehensive property portfolio protection included irrevocable trust instruments that established absolute legal ownership of all family properties and assets, comprehensive power of attorney documents that restricted any potential unauthorized access to family financial resources, detailed estate planning, documentation that clearly established property inheritance structures and prevented any potential family disputes or unauthorized claims, and sophisticated legal entities, including limited liability companies, and family partnerships that provided multiple layers of protection against potential creditors, legal challenges, and systematic attempts at property theft or financial exploitation. My specialized expertise in elder law and financial abuse prevention had been developed through systematic study of criminal methodologies used against elderly property owners, comprehensive training in recognizing psychological manipulation techniques and systematic exploitation patterns, detailed knowledge of law enforcement procedures for investigating elder abuse and financial crimes, and advanced understanding of legal remedies and prosecution strategies available for protecting elderly individuals from systematic family exploitation and property theft. This expertise had been enhanced through personal consultation with elder law attorneys and participation in professional development programs focused on wealth protection and elder abuse prevention. The investigative capabilities that I had developed through decades of property investment and legal oversight included sophisticated surveillance and documentation techniques for monitoring potential threats to property security and family assets, comprehensive background investigation procedures for evaluating potential business partners and family associates, systematic evidence collection and preservation methods for supporting legal actions and criminal prosecutions, and advanced knowledge of digital forensics and electronic evidence that could be used to document systematic financial crimes and elder abuse activity. The financial resources that I could immediately mobilize for legal action and asset protection included liquid investment accounts exceeding $15 million that were immediately available for legal fees and expert consultation, comprehensive insurance policies providing coverage for legal expenses and potential liability claims, established credit facilities with major financial institutions that could provide additional resources for extended legal proceedings, and systematic cash flow from property investments that generated substantial monthly income independent of any family financial considerations or potential asset disputes. My professional network of legal and financial specialists included estate planning attorneys with expertise in complex trust structures and asset protection strategies, litigation specialists experienced in elder abuse prosecution and financial crime investigation, forensic accountants trained in detecting systematic financial fraud and asset manipulation, private investigators with specialized capabilities in elder abuse documentation and evidence collection, and international legal consultants experienced in cross-border asset protection and wealth preservation strategies. The technological capabilities that I maintained for comprehensive property security and evidence documentation included advanced surveillance systems installed throughout all property investments with remote monitoring capabilities, sophisticated alarm and access control systems that provided immediate notification of unauthorized entry or suspicious activities, digital recording equipment for documenting all interactions and conversations with potential threats to property security, and comprehensive computer systems with encrypted storage and backup capabilities for preserving evidence and legal documentation. My expertise in real estate law and property protection had encompassed comprehensive understanding of landlord-tenant relationships and eviction procedures, detailed knowledge of property title law and ownership documentation requirements, systematic knowledge of zoning regulations and development restrictions that affected property use and value, and advanced understanding of environmental law and regulatory compliance that provided comprehensive protection for property investments and development activities. The systematic approach that I had developed for documenting potential legal threats included comprehensive record-keeping procedures for all family interactions and financial discussions, detailed photographic and video documentation of property conditions and unauthorized modifications, systematic preservation of all written communications and legal documents related to family financial matters, and advanced digital evidence collection techniques that could support criminal prosecution and civil legal actions against systematic elder abuse and property theft. The international legal protections that I had implemented for comprehensive asset security included offshore trust structures established in favorable legal jurisdictions with strong asset protection laws, international banking relationships that provided secure financial management and currency diversification, comprehensive insurance coverage through international providers specializing in high net worth individual protection, and established legal relationships with international law firms experienced in cross-border asset protection and elder abuse prevention. My specialized knowledge of criminal investigation procedures and evidence requirements had been developed through systematic study of elder abuse prosecution techniques, comprehensive training in financial crime investigation and evidence preservation, detailed understanding of law enforcement procedures for property crime investigation, and advanced knowledge of legal standards for criminal prosecution and civil litigation that would be necessary for successful legal action against systematic elder abuse and property theft. The security measures that I had implemented for comprehensive family asset protection included sophisticated banking arrangements with multiple financial institutions that provided redundant security and prevented unauthorized access to family accounts, comprehensive legal documentation that clearly established ownership rights and prevented potential family disputes, systematic monitoring of all property investments and financial accounts for suspicious activity or unauthorized access, and advanced personal security arrangements that provided protection against potential threats to personal. My expertise in contract law and legal dispute resolution had been developed through decades of commercial property transactions and investment activities, comprehensive experience in negotiating complex legal agreements and resolving property disputes, detailed knowledge of legal procedures for contract enforcement and litigation, and systematic understanding of alternative dispute resolution techniques that could be used to resolve family conflicts and property disagreements without extensive court proceedings. The comprehensive insurance coverage that I maintained for maximum legal and financial protection included professional liability insurance for potential legal challenges to property management decisions, comprehensive general liability coverage for all property investments and personal activities, specialized insurance for high-value assets and international property investments, and advanced legal expense insurance that provided coverage for potential litigation costs and legal fees associated with defending against systematic elder abuse and property theft attempts. My systematic approach to wealth preservation and estate planning had included comprehensive legal structures for protecting family assets from potential creditors and legal challenges, sophisticated tax planning strategies that minimized tax liability while maximizing wealth accumulation, detailed succession planning that ensured proper asset distribution and family wealth preservation, and advanced charitable giving strategies that provided both tax benefits and community support while maintaining control over family resources. The forensic accounting capabilities that I had access to through my professional network included specialized expertise in detecting systematic financial fraud and asset manipulation, comprehensive analysis of complex financial transactions and investment structures, detailed investigation of suspicious financial activities and unauthorized asset transfers, and advanced techniques for recovering stolen assets and pursuing civil remedies against financial crimes and elder abuse. My knowledge of international finance and asset protection had encompassed systematic understanding of global financial markets and investment opportunities, comprehensive expertise in international banking and currency management, detailed knowledge of international legal systems and asset protection strategies, and advanced understanding of international tax law and compliance requirements that provided comprehensive protection for global property investments and wealth preservation. The litigation support capabilities that I could immediately mobilize included access to expert witnesses in real estate law and property management, comprehensive legal, research and case preparation services, advanced technical support for digital evidence collection and presentation, and systematic coordination with law enforcement agencies and regulatory authorities for criminal investigation and prosecution of elder abuse and property theft. Is a property theft? My systematic approach to family relationship management and conflict resolution included comprehensive documentation of all family interactions and financial discussions, detailed analysis of family dynamics and potential sources of conflict, systematic strategies for maintaining family harmony while protecting property interests and advanced techniques for resolving family disputes and preventing systematic exploitation of elderly family members. The educational resources that I maintained for ongoing professional development included subscriptions to legal and financial publications focusing on elder law and asset protection, regular attendance to professional conferences and training related to property investment and wealth preservation, systematic study of emerging trends, elder abuse prevention and financial crime investigation, and Lecolas Monaroles score, comprehensive monitoring of legal developments and regulatory changes affecting property ownership and estate planning. Papi di Saplang Tren. My expertise in psychological manipulation, detection and prevention had been developed through systematic study of consumer psychology and marketing techniques, comprehensive training in recognizing systematic exploitation, patterns and emotional manipulation strategies, detailed knowledge of psychological conditioning techniques used in financial fraud and elder abuse, and advanced understanding of psychological defense mechanisms, and resistance strategies that could be used to prevent systematic exploitation and abuse. the comprehensive legal documentation that I maintained for all property transactions and family interactions included detailed records of all financial activities and investment decisions, systematic preservation of all legal correspondence and praxis, contract documentation, comprehensive evidence collection procedures for potential legal challenges and disputes, and advanced document management systems that provided secure storage and immediate, might-shapened access to all legal materials and evidence. A moment when I realized that Patricia's systematic elder abuse had provided me with exactly the type of comprehensive evidence necessary for immediate legal action and criminal prosecution was when Guy Hai discovered that her systematic documentation of my alleged cognitive decline, combined with her unauthorized financial manipulation and systematic property appropriation, had created an ironclad case for elder abuse prosecution that would result in immediate asset recovery, comprehensive legal remedies, and permanent imprisonment for attempting to systematically exploit someone whose legal expertise, financial resources, and professional relationships far exceeded anything she had imagined possible in her most ambitious criminal fantasies. The systematic destruction of Patricia Wellington's criminal enterprise began at precisely 8:15 a.m. on a crisp Tuesday morning in October when she confidently descended from what she now considered her master bedroom to find me sitting calmly at the kitchen table she had systematically banned me from using, surrounded by comprehensive legal documentation, financial records, and a team of attorneys and investigators who had been working throughout the night to prepare the most thorough elder abuse prosecution in Riverside County history, completely unaware that her systematic exploitation of what she assumed was a helpless elderly woman had actually been implemented against Margaret Wellington, the sole legal owner of the $2.8 million property she had been living in, holder of one of the most sophisticated real estate portfolios on the West Coast, and someone whose eyes, comprehensive legal resources, and professional relationships would result in her immediate arrest, complete financial destruction, and permanent imprisonment for attempting to steal property from the actual owner, whose wealth and legal expertise exceeded her most ambitious criminal fantasies. The moment of cosmic justice arrived when Patricia entered the kitchen, expecting to find me cowering in the converted garden shed where she had banished me, only to discover that I was seated at the head of the family dining table with estate planning attorney Richard Morrison, elder law specialist Dr. Sarah Chen, forensic accountant Michael Rodriguez, and private investigator Janet Thompson, all of whom had been working since 4 a.m. to prepare comprehensive criminal charges and civil litigation that would ensure Patricia's complete prosecution and permanent imprisonment for systematic elder abuse and property theft. The comprehensive evidence that had been systematically collected during Patricia's months of elder abuse included over 200 hours of digital audio recordings documenting her systematic financial manipulation and psychological abuse, detailed photographic evidence of the systematic degradation of my living conditions, and unauthorized property modifications, comprehensive financial analysis revealing her systematic theft of household funds, and complete documentation of her systematic isolation tactics and communication interception that demonstrated premeditated elder abuse and financial exploitation. Attorney Morrison's immediate presentation of legal documentation to Patricia included comprehensive proof of my sole legal ownership of the Hillcrest Estate property and all family assets, detailed evidence of her systematic financial fraud and property theft, complete documentation of her elder abuse activities and criminal exploitation, and immediate notice of criminal charges being filed with the District Attorney's Office for systematic elder abuse, grand theft, fraud, and criminal conspiracy that would result in mandatory minimum sentences and permanent asset forfeiture. The forensic accounting analysis that Michael Rodriguez had completed during the previous evening revealed that Patricia's systematic financial manipulation had resulted in unauthorized expenditures exceeding $150,000 during the 6 months of her criminal enterprise, including luxury purchases for herself and Marcus, unauthorized property modifications and improvements, and systematic diversion of my investment income to accounts that she controlled. His detailed financial investigation had also revealed her substantial gambling debts and the desperate financial circumstances that had motivated her systematic elder abuse and property theft. Dr. Chen's expert analysis of Patricia's systematic psychological manipulation had documented every technique she had employed for creating artificial dependency and cognitive confusion, including her systematic use of medical terminology to intimidate and confuse, her strategic presentation of complex financial information to create overwhelm and dependency, and her comprehensive isolation tactics that had been designed to prevent external oversight and independent verification of her criminal activities. Private investigator Janet Thompson's comprehensive surveillance and evidence collection had documented Patricia's systematic criminal planning, including her coordination with offshore financial networks for asset laundering, her preparation of false identity documentation for international escape, and her systematic research into elder abuse techniques and legal vulnerabilities that had revealed the premeditated nature of her criminal enterprise. The immediate legal actions that were implemented against Patricia's criminal enterprise included emergency restraining orders preventing her from accessing any family property or financial accounts, comprehensive asset seizure orders that immediately froze all her personal accounts and property, criminal charges filed with the district attorney's office for systematic elder abuse and grand theft, and civil litigation seeking damages exceeding $5 million for systematic elder abuse, property theft, and emotional distress. The systematic exposure of Patricia's criminal network revealed that Marcus had been systematically manipulated through her psychological conditioning and was considered a victim of her systematic family exploitation rather than a criminal co-conspirator. His genuine shock and horror at discovering the extent of her criminal activities and systematic abuse had resulted in his immediate cooperation with law enforcement investigation and his complete separation from Patricia's criminal enterprise. The comprehensive criminal prosecution that was immediately initiated against Patricia included federal charges for systematic elder abuse and financial exploitation, state charges for grand theft and property fraud, and comprehensive civil litigation seeking maximum damages and permanent asset forfeiture. The strength of the evidence and the systematic nature of her criminal activities ensured that she would face maximum sentences under elder abuse statutes and would never again have the opportunity to exploit vulnerable elderly individuals. The immediate aftermath of Patricia's arrest and criminal prosecution included her complete financial destruction through comprehensive asset seizure and forfeiture, her permanent imprisonment under mandatory minimum sentences for systematic elder abuse, and her complete social and professional destruction through comprehensive media coverage of her criminal activities and systematic exploitation of elderly family members. The systematic investigation that followed Patricia's arrest revealed connections to organized elder abuse networks and systematic financial exploitation schemes targeting wealthy elderly individuals throughout California. Her criminal methodology and systematic approach to elder abuse had provided law enforcement with crucial evidence for dismantling broader criminal enterprises and implementing enhanced protection measures for elderly property owners and investors. The comprehensive legal reforms that resulted from Patricia's prosecution included enhanced penalties for family members who systematically exploited elderly relatives, strengthened oversight requirements for family financial management and estate planning, and improved coordination between law enforcement agencies and elder protection services for preventing systematic abuse and financial exploitation of vulnerable elderly individuals. The personal vindication that I experienced through Patricia's comprehensive prosecution and permanent imprisonment represented not just individual justice but systematic protection for elderly individuals who might become targets of similar criminal enterprises. Her catastrophic miscalculation in targeting someone whose legal expertise and financial resources far exceeded her criminal capabilities had resulted in justice that protected vulnerable elderly individuals throughout the legal system. The immediate implementation of my long-planned relocation to Paris began within hours of Patricia's arrest, as I had been systematically preparing for this transition during the months of documenting her criminal activities. My comprehensive arrangements for international relocation included the sale of the Hillcrest Estate property to a private buyer for $3.2 million, systematic transfer of my investment portfolio to international financial institutions, and complete coordination with French legal authorities for establishing permanent residence in my pre-purchased apartment in the prestigious 7th arrondissement of Paris. The sale of the Hillcrest Estate property that Patricia had systematically attempted to steal was completed within 30 days of her arrest, with the proceeds providing additional resources for my Paris relocation and comprehensive legal action against her criminal enterprise. The systematic removal of all family possessions and personal property from the estate ensured that Patricia and Marcus would have no remaining connection to the property or family assets that she had systematically attempted to appropriate. The luxury apartment in Paris that I had been secretly planning to purchase during Patricia's systematic abuse represented the culmination of decades of successful property investment and wealth accumulation. The 2,500 square foot residence overlooking the Seine River, featured panoramic views of the Eiffel Tower and comprehensive amenities that would provide the comfortable and dignified lifestyle that Patricia had systematically attempted to destroy through her elder abuse and property theft. The comprehensive international financial arrangements that I had implemented for my Paris relocation included secure banking relationships with major French financial institutions, systematic transfer of investment portfolios to European asset management firms, and complete coordination with international tax specialists for optimizing my financial situation under French residency requirements. These arrangements ensured that I would have access to substantial financial resources and professional support for enjoying my retirement years in one of the world's most beautiful cities. Iron now. The systematic coordination with French legal authorities for establishing permanent residence included comprehensive documentation of my financial resources and investment portfolio, detailed background investigation and security clearance procedures, and complete coordination with immigration specialists for ensuring proper legal status and permanent residence authorization. These arrangements had been carefully planned and implemented during the months of Patricia's systematic abuse, ensuring that I could immediately relocate following her arrest and prosecution. The cultural and social activities that I had systematically planned for my Paris lifestyle included enrollment in advanced French language courses at the Sorbonne, membership in expatriate social organizations and cultural societies, and comprehensive travel arrangements for exploring European art museums and cultural sites. These activities would provide the intellectual stimulation and social interaction that Patricia had systematically attempted to prevent through her isolation tactics and elder abuse. The comprehensive security arrangements that I had implemented for my Paris residence included advanced alarm and surveillance systems, professional security services for personal protection and property monitoring, and systematic coordination with local law enforcement for ensuring personal safety and preventing any potential threats from Patricia's criminal associates or family members seeking revenge for her prosecution and imprisonment. The systematic monitoring of Patricia's criminal prosecution and imprisonment from my Paris residence included regular communication with law enforcement agencies and legal specialists involved in her case, comprehensive oversight of asset recovery and civil litigation proceedings, and systematic coordination with elder abuse prevention organizations for ensuring that her criminal methodology would be studied and used to prevent similar exploitation of vulnerable elderly individuals. The comprehensive charitable giving program that I established from my Paris residence included substantial donations to elder abuse prevention organizations, funding for legal aid services, specializing in elder law and asset protection, and comprehensive support for international organizations working to protect vulnerable elderly individuals from systematic exploitation and financial abuse. These charitable activities provided meaningful purpose and community contribution, while ensuring that Patricia's criminal activities would ultimately result in enhanced protection for elderly individuals who might become targets of similar criminal enterprises. The systematic documentation of my entire experience with Patricia's elder abuse and criminal prosecution was compiled into a comprehensive memoir and educational resource that would be published to provide guidance for elderly individuals and families facing similar threats. This documentation would ensure that Patricia's criminal methodology would be widely understood, and that vulnerable elderly individuals would have access to the information necessary for protecting themselves from systematic exploitation and abuse. The ongoing coordination with international law enforcement agencies from my Paris residence included systematic sharing of information about Patricia's criminal methodology and systematic elder abuse techniques, comprehensive coordination with elder abuse prevention organizations throughout Europe and North America, and systematic support for law enforcement training programs focused on detecting and prosecuting systematic elder abuse and financial exploitation. The comprehensive lifestyle transformation that I achieved through my Paris relocation included daily walks along the Seine River and through the beautiful gardens of the Trocadero, regular visits to world-class museums and cultural institutions, enrollment in cooking classes and wine appreciation courses, and systematic exploration of French culture and history that provided intellectual stimulation and personal enrichment that Patricia had systematically attempted to prevent through her isolation tactics and elder abuse. The systematic reflection on Patricia's catastrophic miscalculation in targeting someone whose legal expertise, financial resources, and professional relationships far exceeded her criminal capabilities, provided ongoing satisfaction and confirmation that justice had been served not just for individual protection, but for systematic deterrence of similar criminal enterprises. Her systematic elder abuse had ultimately resulted in her complete destruction, while providing me with the opportunity to achieve my long-planned dream of living in Paris with complete financial security and personal freedom. The comprehensive financial analysis of my Paris lifestyle revealed that my systematic property investment and wealth accumulation had provided sufficient resources for a luxury living in one of the world's most expensive cities, with monthly income from my investment portfolio exceeding $50,000 and comprehensive access to international financial services and investment opportunities that would ensure continued wealth preservation and lifestyle maintenance throughout my retirement years. The systematic coordination with Marcus Verhand, family reconciliation and relationship repair had resulted in Preisig, his complete understanding of Patricia's systematic manipulation and criminal exploitation, his comprehensive cooperation with law enforcement, investigation and prosecution, and his genuine remorse for his unwitting participation in her elder abuse scheme, his systematic efforts to rebuild our family relationship and provide support for my Paris transition had demonstrated his Human fundamental decency and his status as down Daferis Makoka, a victim of Patricia's systematic psychological manipulation, rather than a willing participant in her criminal enterprise. The comprehensive legal documentation that I maintained for all aspects of Patricia's prosecution and my international relocation ensured that complete records would be available for future legal proceedings, potential appeals or challenges to her criminal conviction, and systematic protection against any potential attempts by her criminal associates to pursue revenge or retaliation against my successful prosecution of her elder abuse and property theft. The final irony of Patricia's complete destruction was that her desperate attempt to escape financial ruin through systematic elder abuse and property theft had resulted in consequences far worse than her original gambling debts and business failures would have produced, transforming manageable financial problems into federal criminal convictions and permanent imprisonment that eliminated any possibility of financial recovery, professional rehabilitation, or personal freedom, while providing me with the perfect opportunity to achieve my lifelong dream of living in Paris with complete financial security and personal dignity. The lasting legacy of Patricia Wellington's prosecution continues to serve as a powerful deterrent to potential criminals considering systematic exploitation of elderly individuals. While the comprehensive legal precedents established through her case have been adopted by law enforcement agencies throughout North America for detecting and prosecuting sophisticated elder abuse and financial exploitation as schemes, her catastrophic miscalculation in criminal target selection has contributed to enhanced protection for elderly citizens and more effective prosecution of organized elder abuse enterprises, ensuring that her systematic attempt to destroy my life has ultimately resulted in comprehensive protection for vulnerable elderly individuals throughout the legal system. The perfect justice of my current situation, sitting in my beautiful Paris apartment, overlooking the Seine River, with panoramic views of the Eiffel Tower, enjoying the cultural richness and intellectual stimulation of one of the world's most beautiful cities, with complete financial security and personal freedom, represents the ultimate triumph over Patricia's systematic attempts to destroy my dignity and steal my steal my property. Her systematic elder abuse has ultimately resulted in my achieving everything I had dreamed of while she spends the rest of her life in federal prison, serving as a permanent reminder that elderly individuals are not helpless victims, but may possess the legal expertise, financial resources, and professional relationships necessary to achieve complete justice and personal triumph over criminal exploitation and systematic abuse. Every morning when I wake up in my luxury Paris apartment and look out at the most beautiful city in the world, I remember Patricia's confident announcement that I would be living in the converted garden shed while she enjoyed the master bedroom of what she assumed was her property, and I smile at the cosmic perfection of her catastrophic miscalculation in targeting someone whose malaching hidden reality would transform her systematic elder abuse into the most satisfying example Dalit Sisbeis Chrisigaun. Auch of perfect justice and personal triumph that could possibly be achieved through the complete destruction of criminal enterprise and the ultimate realization of lifelong dreams of freedom, dignity, and beautiful living in the most magnificent city on earth.